You know, guys, the facial expression that Anna Kasparian makes at the end of this segment right here to me, which by the way is the same exact facial expression that I chose to put in the thumbnail of this video here, is absolutely priceless. However, I want you guys to understand that you might want to get used to it because this right here is going to be the facial expression of this woman for a very long time.
Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so. We knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
I'm just going to go to you because, no, I'm going to say it. You were a crappy candidate. And you were part of a group of people who provided cover for a man who was falling apart mentally speaking, but decided to run anyway. Decided to stay in the race for a month.
Yep, that facial expression, that one that you guys are seeing right here in the B-roll footage. Now, guys, before we talk about this, before we talk about Anna Kasparian just absolutely raging out on Kamala Harris and the Democrats, I want you guys to know that I'm recording this video here on Friday night and releasing it on Sunday. Come to find out there's something I need to do on Saturday, which of course is probably going to hinder the ability for me to post. But of course, there's also going to be another video that's going to be coming out tomorrow or on Monday that's going to be on Bill Maher. If you guys thought that before I fully, transition all the content, because you guys know how slow I'm about it, if you thought that I was going to drop the occasional Bill Maher take from time to time and not talk about it or talk about TYT, then, well, you guys, well, obviously I'm still going to do that from time to time because obviously I like to do so. However, we got to talk about Anna Kasparian's frustration. And also to go on top of that, Cenk Uygur, once again, just doesn't disappoint with some form of comedy like you'll see here.
No, she's a disaster. Biden did endorse because he knows she's a disaster and he wanted her to lose so he could say his version of I told you so. Ha 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 ha. My career is so much more. As we told you all these I told you so's. Do you see me laughing?
You guys, you know that like phrase about Santa Claus, and now they would describe him as he laughs, like when he laughs, he looks like a bowl full of jelly. That's Cenk right here.
Told you so. Ha 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 ha. My career is so much more. Ha 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 ha. My career is so much more.
Yes, that right there's the kind of video that it is, but we need to talk about this. And of course, obviously, it's fun to talk about this. Now, guys, before we fully dig into this, if you guys have not subscribed to the channel and you like this type of content, please consider subscribing. Please do so. Please keep the notifications bell on. It's the best way to support this channel for free. Also, if you are subscribed, make sure you guys have the notifications bell on so that way you guys are notified when the videos are released. If you guys please can, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button. It helps the video out in the algorithm, helps to get to a much, much larger audience. Let's grow this platform and let us go ahead and dive in. So, Kamala Harris, the former Democratic Party nominee, former vice president, the vice president that Joe Biden picked because he promised that he would pick a woke black female, which actually turned out to be a woke liberal Indian female, half Jamaican, was recently at an event, as you guys obviously caught a little bit of earlier, basically telling everybody that we knew that this was coming. I don't want to say this. I don't want to say that I told you so, but of course, here we are. And of course, here these people are trying to replicate what Trump did when he left office back in 2021, which I will briefly talk about right now. So back in 2021, if you guys remember, Donald Trump, he left the Oval Office, left on January the 20th. Not long after that, he was making speeches at CPAC, and of course, he obviously kept a good portion of the base intact, and it was really in a lot of ways what propelled him in 2024. It was pretty much a given with him having roughly 50% of the GOP base in his, behind him in the primary that he was going to win, and of course, that happened. Which is interesting, too, because current polling right now suggests that Kamala Harris is probably not going to go anywhere in that primary. And, of course, we've documented Anna Kasparian's frustrations with the Democratic Party, the left as a whole. And, yeah, she's not exactly happy at it, as you guys will see here. I've got the time card stamped in the lower corner, so that way you guys know how long the clip is. I'm probably going to do this much, much more often when I play these types of clips, but here you go. Roughly a minute and 25 seconds, quite longer, but here you go.
These are the worst people, man. They really are, okay? No, we all knew what Donald Trump was. We all knew. And for all the Democratic ass kissers out there who provided cover for the bad behavior of that administration, they directed their ire toward people like us who kept warning the Democrats, you're gonna lose to Trump, you're gonna lose to Trump, you're pushing unpopular policies, you're gaslighting Americans on the issue of immigration. If you do that, that creates an opening for someone like Donald Trump to come in and do what he's doing in regard to mass deportations, do what he's doing in regard to literally deporting people before they even have a single day in front of a judge to adjudicate whether or not they're undocumented, to adjudicate whether or not they're actually gang members.
Yeah.
So for all, by the way, all the left-wing media folks who directed their ire toward me, and they're like, oh, you see that? Anna's getting what she wants. No, I'm not getting what I wanted. I wanted Democrats to stop gaslighting American citizens and acknowledge what was going on in the country and provide their solutions for it.
Too much to ask for.
Too much to ask for. Anna's the problem. Oh, big, strong, big, bad Anna. With all of her power, she's the one who swung the election, right? I can't stand these people. They're the worst. They're the worst.
Let's watch it again.
Or Anna's the problem. Oh, big, strong, big, bad Anna. With all of her power, she's the one who swung the election, right?
Oh, big bad Anna with her powers. Look, here's the truth. Anna Kasparian, and she's still very, very much on the left, so don't be thinking that she's shifting to the right, even though she's done some time here recently with Megyn Kelly on her show, and she's been making the rounds. The thing about Anna Kasparian is this here. This has been happening for a while, and I've said before, and I get heat for saying this, but I actually agree with something that the aristocratic utensil put in the video that he then took down not long afterwards. I have no idea why he did that, where he said that he basically assessed that Anna Kasparian was not really and truly an actual true leftist, that what she was a liberal LARPing with leftists, whether she knew she was doing that or not. That, yeah, she was very, very much liberal on the left, but not an actual true leftist. There's probably going to need to be a video explaining the difference between the two a little bit later on down the road, because I do have an update on how the content's going to go. I have an idea of how I'm going to be doing this, because of course I've got all this content to come out, but still at the same time I can't really, I'm having a hard time separating. But get back on track. The thing is this right here. Anna Kasparian's been speaking about crime. I've talked about how it was that she got attacked outside her home. She's been speaking about the issues in New York City, especially the subway. I want to say there was one particular incident where they found arms and legs on a subway train one time, and she brought that up, and it was in response to Kathy Hochul on The View. Yeah, that type of stuff there. Anna Kasparian's been sort of waking up on this issue. Not exactly strong, but definitely stronger than most leftists who actually go out of their way to deny crime. And also to go on top of that, now it wasn't just that there, but it was also the immigration issue. She basically went all in on that. And even Jink had a bit of an epiphany, I wouldn't call it an epiphany, but he had a bit of a moment on that same very topic. He basically said that he felt that the federal government was irresponsible for putting all the work at the feet of the state of Texas. Mexico, also Arizona, even Southern Californians were getting tired of it. Basically, if you were at a border state, you were getting screwed. But let me get back on track. Now, of course, Jink has got to chime in on this with, the normal Jinkisms. We'll get to that here momentarily. This next segment is roughly 2 minutes and 12 seconds, but obviously I've got to break in at least once, and I've got to kind of file this one down because Jink is about to, go full Jink. But here you go.
Early was because he was going to lose to Trump. And what I kept saying on the show, and we did a petition and Young Turks viewers signed it, they should get all the credit. They were prescient enough all the way back then to say, guys, we're not going to beat Donald Trump with a guy who can't talk. We at the Young Turks, our viewers have eyes and ears. And we can see that he's super old, can't finish his sentences, mumbles, repeats. He's a disaster. And his popularity is in the 30s. And for an incumbent in the 40s, you always lose. In the 30s, it's almost impossible to win. So these are just facts. He'd lost Latinos, he'd lost young people.
No, Jink, you're partially responsible for this. You see, Jink back in 2020, he had a theory. another YouTube content creator by the name of Stephen Michael Davis actually got it right in his Why Bernie Wasn't Robbed series, it's part 3, where his theory was that the Democrats had actually chosen Kamala Harris, and that the goal was, according to their campaign, was for her to basically win South Carolina, mostly because she was more melanated. And of course, she would then go on to win the California primary, which, by the way the Democratic Party structured their primary in 2020 was actually designed to help Bernie Sanders out, which, of course, these people oftentimes fail to acknowledge. Socialism just isn't popular. However, I do have a video coming out a little bit later on, just not tomorrow, but probably on Monday, explaining how it is that they're glued to this and how it's actually going to ultimately bring them down. Just basically what I've been saying before, but I'm just going to add a brand new wrinkle to it because it is about to happen. And it's going to happen in a way that's actually very, very eerily familiar to another pattern in history. But still, though, the point is this right here. Cenk had a theory about that, but then, of course, when the nominee became Joe Biden, he ultimately ended up settling behind Joe Biden the same way he did in 2016 behind Hillary Clinton, even after they claimed that Bernie was robbed and got screwed and all that type of stuff there, basically telling everybody he was full of shit, like we've been telling you for a while he is. What ended up happening was that he ended up settling behind Biden. And then, of course, they took the next 4 years to complain about the administration, but also at the same time go out of their way to support certain aspects, and then also at the same time just spend all day talking about Donald Trump, because that right there is what these people did. They were Trump obsessed. That's literally what the left does. And then, of course, when Joe Biden was about to run for president, I will give Cenk a bone here. I will give some credit. He was saying you might want to find somebody else, but let's not act like Cenk Uygur would not have actually supported Joe Biden if he was not the nominee. Trust me, he still would have supported Joe Biden regardless, even though he did run for president at one point in time and failed miserably. But he still would have ultimately supported Joe Biden. Anna Kasparian, on the other hand, she didn't vote. And, of course, if you guys remember correctly, Cenk had a meltdown this time around when Trump won again. Just not as great as the one he had back in 2016. I may link to Tom May Peso's video in the description box for you guys. And, of course, the updated one for 2024, so that way you guys can have some fun watching the meltdowns, because they are absolutely hilarious. But let's get back to this segment. Like I said, I had to edit some of it down, but here you go.
Mad King says he's staying in the race and we're going to lose. We all have to bow to the Mad King. You, Young Turks hosts and audience, and all of you guys defying the Mad King is a much bigger crime than Joe Biden's giant ego saying.
Most of them would have voted for Biden anyways because Orange Man bad. And you still would have supported them, Cenk. Just saying. Mad King Cenk, you still would have voted for Biden regardless. Let's just go ahead and be real here. But let's continue.
Joe Biden's giant ego saying, I don't care if I have dementia. I want it to be me and only me. And I don't care if I lose to Trump, as long as it's me. That egomaniac fool and all of his advisors put us on the ship headed straight toward an iceberg. And we kept screaming, it's an iceberg straight ahead. And they would yell at us, oh, look at these guys warning about an iceberg. It's your fault, you created the iceberg. No, we didn't, you incompetent fools. Then what did we say? Once Biden finally dropped out and we were 100% right, we said do an open convention. Please do an open convention. Obama and Pelosi didn't endorse Kamala Harris. They didn't endorse because they know she's a disaster. She's a disaster. Biden did endorse because he knows she's a disaster and he wanted her to lose so he could say his version of I told you so. My career is so much more. As we told you all these I told you so's, do you see me laughing?
Here's the deal. The reason why Obama wanted an open convention, which I honestly believe was a load of crap because they were getting very, very late in the game. I think the reason why he wanted it because he was high on people not named Kamala Harris. Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris, and many people believe that he endorsed her to kind of stick it to Obama because Obama had already, quote unquote, lost faith in Joe and was already looking to get him replaced. There have been several books written on this. You've had Lindy Lee making her rounds about this issue. There's this new book called Fight, which I think details exactly what's going on. And by the way, there's also something else too that got mentioned in the actual episode, and it was about Tim Walz. And Tim Walz, of course, making recent rounds, is acting like, hey, look, I gotta own this, he basically going out of his way to say we weren't going to win anyways, even though the book itself describes him, and he himself even said that he felt shocked that they actually lost. They were actually sitting there watching the results, and he was shocked that they lost. Sounds to me like somebody's once again just backtracking on previous words, for reasons. But still, though, at the same time, though, it's no secret that Barack Obama did not want Kamala Harris. However, the thing is this right here. If Barack Obama had the actual power to get somebody else, he would have gotten somebody else. It's one of the reasons why it is that I don't think that Obama has the sway in the Democratic Party that he thinks he does. And I believe that it's not just one Democrat Party civil war or one civil war inside the Democratic Party, but probably a multitude of civil wars that are going on inside that party. We've even got a small one here on the right, but it's much, much more friendlier in discourse, which I may talk about down the road. Not entirely sure. But the fact of the matter is that Jink's actually correct. Obama did not want Kamala Harris to be the nominee. Neither did Pelosi, neither did Chuck Schumer. But I do find it funny that they always kind of sort of defer to these people as their God King. I'm just saying, just making an observation. And yes, they will say the exact same thing about conservatives and Trump too. We're all ready for that as well, but we'll handle that when we get there. However, there was more from Anna, which we will go ahead and get to now. Roughly a minute and 15 seconds, but let's go ahead and watch this.
To that guy.
So that
what are you laughing about? I mean, it's just, by the way, my other very favorite thing that's happening right now, people are like, oh, Kamala Harris, she might run again. She might run in the next presidential election. And these like left-wing shows play that reaction I had to you mentioning how she might run for governor of California. And I had a very real, yes, knee-jerk reaction to it. I started screaming, no, what are you doing? Don't do that. Because she's a bad candidate.
she's awful.
She sounds like she's drunk.
So
Okay,
I know.
can we just
No,
stop
she's the greatest.
pretending?
He ran a flawless campaign.
Let's
Biden is
stop
young.
pretending. Stop pretending. The video she submitted to that little Catholic thing where the roast happened.
Al Smith dinner, yeah.
Yeah, the Al Smith dinner. That video wasn't funny at all, not even a little bit. Okay, she is not a talented politician. She's not a leader. Let's stop pretending like a pile of crap is gold, because it's not.
So look.
Well, Anna, I hate to tell you this, hon, but you're screwed. However, I am going to let this next segment play, which is only about 30 seconds, and then I'll come back on the other end and conclude and explain to you exactly how screwed you are. And why it is that, yeah, you may have a right to be angry. But let me play this last part.
Regard to Israel and what they're doing to Palestinians in Gaza. But what did she do? Shut them down, didn't listen to a damn thing they had to say, wouldn't even let a Democratic Palestinian surrogate give a pre-approved short speech at the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
Okay, she's garbage as a candidate, she's not a leader, and she deserved to lose.
And by the
You
way,
guys can obviously see Anna was obviously not too pleased. It's okay. So let me explain to you exactly how screwed you are. In the video that I have coming out next week, I'm going to be going over some of the stuff that happened in the Bernie Sanders town hall and how it is that a lady in the crowd corrected Anderson Cooper about not using her pronouns correctly, not using they, them pronouns. And Bernie Sanders, even he was actually baffled by the woman's facial expression. He was basically baffled by it. And of course, it's also going to include a segment from CNN that went viral last week that I'm going to, replicate because obviously I like to do that. But still, though, the point is this right here. The video is going to be explained on how it is that they are 100% totally screwed, and even going into 2026, they're probably going to get a piss poor performance. And of course, they'll find a way. They'll trust me, they will find a scapegoat, but you're about to see a leftist takeover. And I got to remind everybody once again why it is that the leftist takeover of the Democratic Party or the left-wing Tea Party is really just what you've been wanting for the entire time, representation. However, it's representation with no power because you won't have a snowball's chance at getting close to even a strong-sized minority, as in the legislative body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is this right here. These people are, in fact, screwed. We'll talk more about the political side of it on the other side. However, I want to focus on the aspect of Kamala Harris and what she may do. Because, see, right now, Kamala Harris is currently leading the pack amongst Democratic Party candidates. Now, she lost the last election, and the prevailing theory from her camp is that if she had a full campaign, she could win. And if the Democratic Party primary system stays the same, chances are she would win South Carolina, and then she'd probably win her home state of California, and then everybody would just go ahead and drop out and get behind her. But there is another matter that makes me think that this right here is probably the most likely outcome. And I did talk about Stephen A. Smith before and why it is that Stephen A. Smith stands no chance. Because, of course, the Democratic Party is ultra feminine. And, of course, to go on top of that, there not only is it ultra feminine, but it's also full of soy boys. And also to go on top of that, if you sound even slightly somewhat misogynistic in some ways, which, by the way, they'll find the clips of Stephen A. Smith talking about how great women's asses are, how he prefers women, all that type of stuff there. Yes, you will see pretty dang on quick that this guy right here won't survive. Not to mention the fact that he is way too much of a Northeastern personality as far as his accent is concerned, the way he moves, his body language, to connect to anyone in South Carolina, especially the black population there too. They will reject him. But getting back on track, if this right here is the scenario, then Kamala Harris would be set up absolutely perfectly to run and get the nomination. Now, would she win the presidency? No, she'd get absolutely creamed. She'd get crushed. She'd get beaten way worse than what she did against Trump. As a matter of fact, I think if she ran against DeSantis or J.D. Vance, she'd get absolutely curbed. As a matter of fact, I actually think that Nikki Haley, a person that I absolutely cannot stand and would not vote for or would struggle to vote for, would still win the general election against Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris was just that god-awful. That right there is the current state of the current Democratic Party. And yeah, I feel for Anna why she's upset. She's got nowhere to turn, which makes me think that a prominent third party may be down the road somewhere, but we'll get to that in another video because, of course, they had to bring up the topic of Israel and how that was handled. And I've said pretty much all 2023 and 2024 that was going to cost them the election and possibly even the Democratic Party as a whole. Greg Foreman mentioned that as well, because they were trying to take the both sides approach, meaning try to please both sides, and when you do that, you end up pleasing nobody. But here's the reason why it is, and let me go ahead and conclude the video on this right here. Here's the reason why it is that these people are absolutely screwed. Kamala Harris has not given back the money yet. There was a scandal, a big hoopla about why it was that Kamala Harris had not returned back the money to the donors. Kamala Harris, the minute Joe Biden endorsed her, and by the way, there was actually a meeting where she urged Joe Biden to endorse her. Kamala Harris was already on the phone, working the phones, wheeling and dealing, getting the money to get her over. She never returned it, even though the donors were obviously pissed off. There are obviously some donors who are willing to let her have that money. That means that she's got a massively large war chest already that she has not returned. It's basically stolen money. Or it could be money to further a venture later on. Some people believe it would be the governor of California, but she wouldn't need much money to run for that seat. My thinking is that she's running for president, and Anna Kasparian obviously has a reason to be upset, because it looks to me like 2028 is probably going to be a repeat of 2024. Except it's probably going to be much, much more brutal because not all the base is going to be there with them. But we shall discuss that in much, much more detail in the video coming out on Monday. Make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Happy Sunday. This video is obviously made on Friday, being released on Sunday. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share, sign off, and I'll see you guys later.